everybody? Happy Monday night. Today is May 8th, 2023. This is Across the Pitch. Listen, my name is Mike Barrera. We are joined by Jose Nunez and Dave Miller. Jose, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. Two things are very apparent after a very fun weekend for us. We tend to do fine against New York, but we also are really great at traveling. My God, our fans were so loud in New York. I absolutely loved it. Revved me up, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And Dave, how you doing out there in England today?
Yeah, I mean, good. Got back from Manchester a few hours ago for a weekend away from last weekend of the season. So the media team we went away to Manchester for the weekend. Got ready and ended off the season with a win against a team in the playoffs. I mean, it was the second. I mean, we scored 7 goals in the first half of the season, but we ended the season with second in the form table over 23 games. So I mean, it's automatic promotion. If it fingers crossed next year we can be up and around there. But of course, we're here to speak about the Union. A big bounce back at the weekend after what was a more than forgettable Tuesday night. But I mean, again, back in the playoffs now. We're not comfortably in the playoffs, and it's obviously looking up and looking forward ahead to a big game on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I know we didn't want to talk too much about the LA game, but I feel like some of it should be discussed. It was a very disappointing night overall. I think all three of us agreed it was kind of one of those games you want to forget ever happened. I know, Jose, you and I had kind of joked briefly, I was like, I shut Twitter off for like a good few days just to kind of decompress mentally and to kind of just escape from the Union for a few days. But I think one of the biggest things for me from the LAFC game was as soon as the lineup came out, we were all like, yeah, I don't know. And they just kind of put the vibe for the whole night. So, Jose, what were your thoughts? A brief thought on Tuesday before we jump into the Red Bulls game.
Yeah, I mean, it's the elephant in the room, right? We had, I think, a awful, if not horrendous evening out in LA. And frankly, probably one that we just really needed to get out of the way. We knew we were going to have some shockers. Every team has a shocker throughout the season. And for us, it was when it counted the most, unfortunately. So I'm glad it's over. Now, as Dave mentioned, you need to lose one and win one to have a nice bounce back. So hopefully that LA loss is the last one that we have to talk about when it's, that type of trouncing. It was just, it was difficult to stomach, but hey, we gave it our best. We're talking about being a semifinalist in a continental cup. That is unbelievable to say 6 years ago, right? Where that would have been a dream. Now we're actually living it. So sometimes you just got to take a step back. And as you mentioned, being off of social media for a little bit was great to just sort of reset.
Well, Jose, you mentioned taking a step back and kind of reviewing everything, maybe, right? Some, hindsight. Dave, you had covered the press conference from Jim Curtin, and you mentioned him having a bit of a thoughtfulness to the way he reacted to the LAFC game. Can you share some thoughts from that and your impression from the Union?
I mean, I feel like it was one of those ones where you haven't really heard it from Jim before. Sometimes, Jim doesn't really address these sort of things in his press conferences. He usually sort of is more upbeat, is more positive, he looks ahead, as just looking back. But it was really self-reflective. He sort of was really looking back and he sort of said, look, I mean, it was really telling. Obviously, he sort of really did pay attention to squad rotation. It wasn't brought up. It wasn't really brought up. It wasn't really mentioned. He just sort of went to it and said, look, I do need to make better use of the squad. And we saw it for the Red Bulls game. But as well, I think there was a quote or two maybe about him saying how proud he was in the team for the effort and how far they've gotten. I think he was quick to shut that down as well. If it was to be misinterpreted of, he's treating the CCL run as a success. So look, we're not here for moral victories. We want to win the trophy. We wanted to win the whole thing. And so, so I think that was the point he was trying to make. Perhaps some people may have misconstrued it. I think you could probably understand him sort of saying, look, we got to the final four. It's a good achievement. I think he perhaps just wants to clarify to people in case, they want to pick it apart. It isn't a success, but look, we have had a good run. So I think that's what he was just trying to sort of reiterate. I mean,
to that point, Dave and Mike, I know we as a group sort of talked about it, but this is the very first time in a very, very long time, if ever, that I've ever heard Jim actually address points that the media has criticized him about.
Yes.
This is the self reflection is probably the best way to say it. But in reality, as I was following along with Dave's thread, which was fabulous, thank you, Dave, for doing that for us. I never imagined that he would address exactly what we talk about every single week, right?
He's watching, Jose. That's what it is.
Well,
hey, Jim Curtin, how you doing tonight?
I don't think Jim or Tanner are listening, but it was one of those moments where just like, yes, and this is what we've been suggesting. And I'm not gonna sit here on a podcast with however many people are listening right now, whether it's live or in a recording, and pretend that I have the credentials that Jim Curtin has.
Right.
But some of the stuff that we suggest is so blatantly obvious that for him to say it out loud into a microphone in a press conference that's actually sanctioned by a Continental Cup was one of those moments where it's just like, whoa, a moment of clarity in a way.
And listen, sometimes you need to get embarrassed to have that moment of clarity. And the good coaches learn from their mistakes. You can argue even good general managers learn from their mistakes. Look at Howie Roseman, right? From years ago, drafting a firefighter lineman, that was not fit for the league. And he obviously has become a better GM. So sometimes you need to have your very rock bottom downs to eventually learn how to adjust to what you have in front of you. And I also believe that Jim was very much hell-bent on, well, it worked last year. This is the players that worked last year. Let's just continue to do exactly the same thing. But it's obvious at this point, the league has kind of figured out the union. The substitutions and the players have not been what we've desired. And you're right, Jose. I was very surprised, but if the losing in the semifinal of a CCL is what it takes for us to get to the MLS Cup again or to win the Open Cup, then so be it. Then I'm fine with that, because at least it shows that there's some growth into Jim Curtin, that he's not just riding out his final season with us, hypothetically speaking, being complacent. So I was excited by that. Like I said, once I saw Leon Flock in the 6, I was like, oh boy. And then it was just one of those things where the whole match just didn't sit well with me at all. But again, the Red Bulls game came around. We did see some squad rotations. Yes, Jose, you were right.
Damien,
you were right.
For
Damien,
everybody in the back, the back, please,
listen,
nice and loud. Both of you.
I will admit when I was wrong. I love Jack Elliott, and I do believe he's earned the right to earn some playing time up until this point. But right now, Damian Lowe is just playing better. I mean, one of the tackles he put on Corey Burke alone, I was like, oh my God, almost killed him. And you know what my favorite part of that whole first half alone was when Damian yelled at Flock. Not because it was Flock, but because it showed like a fight, a tenacity that we really need right now on the team, especially with Jose Martinez out. So I thought Damian played excellent. And the question that I know we've been floating around Twitter now is, what do we do with Jack Elliott and Damian Lowe? Is this now a rotation that's going to happen more frequently? Dave, did you get a chance to watch a match, Dave?
I caught the highlights.
Okay.
Just from when on there, basically. I mean, it's been quite a busy weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, again, it was good to see rotation. I think you need to rotate, and I imagine we will see another hefty rotation in midweek, about tomorrow night, especially with, another long trip to Colorado coming up as well. I can imagine Jim want to keep the legs fresh. But yeah, just think, mention obviously the Damon Lowe point. I think I remember Jim did mention along the lines that Lowe was actually meant to play in one of the recent games.
Yeah.
But obviously I think he picked up a knock in training, so that's why he couldn't play. So he was actually meant to be involved, but he couldn't actually play because of a knock. So Jim sort of had to, go back and put Jack in. But yeah, I mean, Jack hasn't had the best decision so far. I think a fair few players haven't really stepped up. I mean, we haven't really seen Carranza or McAlua really hit top form yet, despite, Mikel scoring a hat-trick the other week, and Julian's had a couple of games where he scored a couple of goals. They haven't really, done it over a consistent period of time that we saw last year. Do you know what I mean? We were at one point last year watching Carranza, score like 2 hat-tricks in 3 games and, contributing massively in 7-0 wins. And I mean, hopefully, perhaps, last season may have set the standards too high. I don't think we'll probably, I doubt we'll ever really see a season like the second half of the season like we did last year in terms of just how ridiculous the scoring was. But I mean, yeah, it's good to see, bouncing back after a frustrating defeat, with a clean sheet and a win. I think on the road as well, especially, which is huge against a big rival in the Red Bulls. And so, as I said, it makes. It was great, to send the travelling fans home happy. It was a great support from the looks of it. A lot of Union fans were there, so it was obviously great to send them home happy with a well-deserved 3 points from the highlights. I feel like the Union probably could have scored a couple more. I think that Harry should have scored. Really should have.
He had a great chance.
That was a defender. I'll say that was a defender's chance.
Yeah,
where, he has to do better. But I think going off the basis of the highlights, I don't think there was much involved. I saw the Corey Burke challenge on Andre Blake and the outrage of it all. But it was just a yellow. It was a yellow card challenge. I thought the penalty was soft as well. I think we maybe want to discuss that. If we want to discuss that, I think the penalty was a bit of a soft one. Don't know about you guys.
I agree, Jose. Well, before we get to the penalty, because I agree 100%, Dave. What were your thoughts on the lineup and the substitutions they made both before the game and during the game, Jose?
Yeah, you nailed it, Mike. I think I heard your sigh all the way from Zed's at my house when the lineup came out, because I think we might have been in sync, right? To see Flock at the 6, Quinn up top, and which I don't mind. I know you both of you are big believers in Quinn, and maybe I just haven't seen enough of him or to feel that confident or that good about it. But rotation's rotation. But I remain unsatisfied in that of Perea, right? So where is he? And Dave, I know you continue to put the gauntlet down of like, if he doesn't play in this game, then there's something seriously wrong. At least you say that about Ua. And I think this can apply to Perea. If he does not play tomorrow as a central, if not starter piece to the team, I really have some questions about this rotation. Never mind Torres, who we have seen sparsely, and he was fortunate enough to get a lot of time. So those are my thoughts on the lineup. Was it enough rotation? I would argue no, but you also gotta keep some sort of cohesiveness. But one thing that I am absolutely correct is that Damian Lowe should be starting for our team more often. Dave, the highlights that you watched did no justice to him during that match, considering that he got Team of the Week accolades given to him, I think, just today. So he really, really played well to the point, and I think you alluded to it, Dave. You must have seen it, or maybe it was Mike that mentioned it a little bit earlier. But the way that he was, without fear, without hesitation, despite being a sub that apparently hardly plays, the way that he approached Flock to tell him, you must do better, or whatever the hell he said, because I'm sure it wasn't quite as polite as that, was such a refreshing thing to see, especially when you have Flock flopping around, slipping and sliding, not being able to hold his feet against Corey Burke. Corey Burke, of all people, he's being, put into the spin cycle for some odd reason. So overall, I'm just so happy that everybody who traveled was able to leave satisfied. And I mentioned it earlier, how wonderful it sounded on the television to hear I think an ensemble of Sons of Ben and KSU together cheering. That brought up a lot of questions over the weekend about general admission for the River End and whether or not assigned seating even makes sense in that section anymore. Nonetheless, I'm more optimistic about tomorrow, but we can get into that later.
In terms of the rotation, I'm glad Bueno came in for Ali, and Ali didn't play the full game. I was happy about that. I was fine with Quinn starting. I think playing, whatever it was, 20 minutes is fine. I knew Nathan was going to start on the right. I think we all knew that Harry was going to start over Olivier, which I guess makes me believe that Olivier is going to start in Minnesota. I'm sure Jack Elliott is going to start in Minnesota. But you're right. Perea needs to be on the right-hand side. You cannot trot Bedoya out there for another, X amount of minutes. You just can't. You can't play them that close together, especially after a Red Bull match, which is always intense. And honestly, I thought Tolkien missed a great opportunity in the first half, but Andre Blake kept that game 0-0. The Red Bulls had some clear opportunities in the first half. So going to your point, Dave, about the penalty kick, it was a stupid play by the defender. He should not have put his arm out to even try to impede him. But that was a very soft call because I think he was trying to see if the feet got clipped at all from Carranza, and I think it was Nealis, whatever his name is. But I didn't see anything. I saw the arm hit Carranza's stomach, and then Carranza just fly up in the air.
That was
It
as
was
soft as it gets. It was unbelievable, and the fact that VAR even had to get involved, I was surprised. And
it
again,
was
I
a
think
long VAR too.
and Danny Higginbottom, bottom, however you say his last name, I apologize, Danny. Said it best. This is setting a precedent. This is a foul that you don't typically review. This is not something that you typically review via VAR. And again, the league this year is setting a lot of precedents that we'll need to live with. We go back VAR when we played Montreal. Let's not forget about that. And now we have VAR on a penalty call the way that it was given yesterday, Saturday. Not a handball.
No.
Not a there was no reason for that to really be VAR, but they did it anyway. So it's, again, setting another interesting precedent from here on out.
No, and if anything, Danny was saying as a defender, you're basically asking to get a call like that by stretching his arm out. So it almost seemed like the referee was punishing the defender for doing a stupid penalty, rather than saying, objectively speaking, this is not enough for a penalty kick. Let's just play on, and that's it. I mean, listen, credit to Julian for going down, because it ended up getting us the win, but it wasn't anything that I was necessarily, blown away by. And also the Union, again, failed to score an open play, which again is an issue, because Goslar has 7 goals this year, right? Not a single one has been from open play. Like that is a problem.
Dave, that's what they call a penalty merchant.
It's 100%. I mean, David, do you think it's as big of an issue, or am I just being too overdramatic?
I mean, to be honest, you've just made him a designated player. I think you probably would want to see more contributions in terms of if it's goal scoring or, yeah, I would say sort of, yeah, because again, as I say, it's a designated player. He should be scoring goals consistently. Well, consistently, should be involved more consistently, but that's an issue for your front three. They're all designated players of some sort. So, again, they're clearly 3 players that Jim has obviously hung his hat on this year to, try and take this team back to where they were last year. And so far, say all 3 have under-delivered. They've all had games where, they've performed really well. But as a whole, in terms of consistency, none of them really consistently played great over a period of 3, 4, 5 games. So, yeah, that's the one frustrating thing.
And also, you had the one, I forget what it was, in the end of the first half, Quinn Sullivan had a really great cross with his left foot, and Daniel just stopped running. I'm like, what? Like, I assume that Daniel was expecting a bit of a cutback, but just keep running. The net's wide open. Even Daniel was like, if he keeps running, he's, kissing the ball into the net. And also, can we acknowledge we've seen now about 4 or 5 crosses from Quinn from the left side that have been perfect this season.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know, Jose, you mentioned we haven't seen enough of him to maybe say he's definitely worth starting. I partially agree, but I think we've seen enough for him where he should be getting steady minutes. He should be starting on Saturday, or Tuesday rather. Let him play again, start, and put him with, whoever. Maybe put him with Pierre if you want to bring him up for one game. I don't care. But I want to see more of Quinn Sullivan. I feel like his left foot is got a lot of potential there from what we're seeing. So I'm excited for that. But besides the outcome is I know people were complaining, Jose, online about the win.
That was something, man. I another thing that I always say nice and loud on this podcast, and you can check the tape many, many weeks over and over and over again. You win at home, you tie away, or you sneak away with a win, whether it's 1-0 or 7-1 against DC United. It doesn't matter. You tie away, and that's how you get yourself a championship. So for us, despite it being a penalty goal and being a soft penalty goal, so interesting to see our fan base be so vocal about, well, that was a terrible game. We should be winning by more. It's like, well, I guess partially true, but in reality is they did their job away from home after a very disappointing and probably morale killing defeat against the LAFC in LA. So going from one coast to the other while also carrying all that burden of the loss, I'm sure wasn't easy. Never mind going to a hostile. I say this
hostile.
Hostile environment of an empty Red Bull arena. So so for what it's worth, Star Wars night, we got it done away from home. So no reason to complain. Come on now.
They were showing the fan section for the Red Bull supporters, and they zoomed in so close to make it look like there was more people there than there actually was. But even the people they had on camera, which was maybe like 10 people, it was just so poor compared to what we see from the KSU and from the Sons of Ben on the regular basis.
Yeah.
So listen, I don't care how we get it done. When's the last time we've had a pretty Red Bull game? I mean, honestly, like when's the last time we're like, oh wow, that was a really well executed match? We've never had one in recent history. It's always just some ugly shit show of a game. So that's exactly what I expected. Some team was going to win 1-0 or 2-1. It wasn't going to be pretty. There's probably going to be some controversy, which there was.
You know what would have been pretty? A Red Bull game that would have been pretty? The one that we tied a man up last year at home.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes. There it is again, Dave.
I mean, I keep on going back to that game,
Yeah.
but can you imagine winning 1-0 at home against the Red Bull with a man up? That would qualify to me as a great win.
True.
And that wasn't a penalty goal. I don't recall. I'll have to check, but
course of history changes as well. If that win happens.
I mean, yeah, you would have been hosting the MLS Cup if you got those. Listen, I know, Jose, you've been calling for it since last year. I know.
It's my dumb calling card. Every single time we talk about Red Bull and not having the supporter shield, not hosting the MLS Cup. Listen, when it was the playoff game against New York and we ended up winning, I saw that dumb QR code on the screen of the stadium and I scanned it so quick because I thought I was buying tickets to play at home. So I was like an idiot pointing my phone to buy tickets to go to LA. And then I realized, oh yeah, this is not, we don't host. This is weird.
It's the worst. Well, listen, I mean, tomorrow night is the Open Cup. It's something that, Jose, you and I as longtime Union fans have been craving for forever. Nagira's, post-shot, all that stuff. So it's 8:30 p.m., I believe. I know they're showing it on YouTube via Bleacher Report, which is a really weird way to show the game. I mean, but so be it.
Yeah.
So, Dave, what are your thoughts on the squad rotation for tomorrow, as well as some predictions here for the Open Cup?
I think it depends, how strong of a rotation it is. Personally, for me, I'd quite like to see Trent Holden play a goal. No disrespect to Joe Bendick, I think that Trent is going to get more out of this game than Joe would. I mean, honestly, that's just me. I think if you're going to utilize another goalkeeper, I think Joe is sort of the sub goalkeeper that you'll bring with you to games in case of an emergency. Why not give Trent a start? Be that. Give him a start and see what was about. You never know. He could be the next Matt Freese for all we know. But I'd like to see Trent start. Jack Elliott probably come in. I can't imagine after his recent injury issues that Kai Wagner will start again. I think he'd be silly not to start Matt Riel. I think obviously Bedoya will start. He should start very clearly.
Dave, you're right, Dave. He's absolutely 100% correct.
No, he's not wrong. It's just you just have to whenever you say it, Dave, I'm already preparing myself for the.
Go ahead, Dave. Continue your line.
Obviously, it's a really nice place for Andros Prayer on the bench. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if the front two is a combination of Chris Donovan and either Uar or Torres or three. I can imagine him starting Chris Donovan. It sort of feels like the game he's starting. I don't know about you guys.
Well, to Dave's Jose's point from last week, I'm going to stop you real quick, Dave. Jose said he has no room to pick and choose what cup is more important for him. So, if anything, because the CCL is now out the window, MLS Cup is still obviously a ways away. Is there more importance for you, Dave, as an Open Cup, for you to get this Open Cup and make an advance to the tournament, or is this very much like last year? We're like, it's the bottom of the list, I
mean, obviously you've got the League's Cup, whatever it's called, but that's a weird one because it's It's a bit like the MLS's back cup, where it's its own isolated tournament, but everything else pauses for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like you can go 110% in that and really go for it, because it's not as if you've got the game and then you can have a league game in 2 days' time, and then you've got another game 3 days later. It's
True.
all one tournament. So I don't know how. Perhaps that might rank higher. I don't know. I feel like the Open Cup for a team, especially like the Union, at the stage where they are, is a cup. I mean, Jose, you probably see it a lot with the FA Cup, League Cup, like with Man City, Man United, where in the earlier stages, no matter who they play, they will rotate the lineup heavily and they'll make 6 or 7 changes. And I feel like this is the sort of stage that the Union will probably look at it and go, I mean, look, we're 5 games away from the final, 4 games away from the final. If we get through this one, we can start, perhaps look at it a bit more seriously as we go along, as opposed to going 110% in this and then carrying the exact same players to Colorado and expecting them to go again after another long travel. So I could see Jim making 5 or 6 changes, just keeping things fresh. And I think this will be the game which we will expect it to happen in, but I think Jim will make a point about squad rotation in this game especially.
Well, as Joey mentions here, rotate and focus on the league, which I think a lot of fans at this point, I think if you asked us 6 years ago, we would say, no, we want the Open Cup. Look, my cat wants the Open Cup. He made an appearance. So, but I think you're right. I think the standards has changed, and the MLS is now the priority overall.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you looked at us before the season started, we all said we have so much depth. There's no reason why we can't put out a really good lineup, even in the Open Cup, with Perea, with Bueno, Matt Real, if you want to say that, whatever. I mean, Jose, are your expectations the same now, even with our CCL exit? I mean, what's changed for you in this?
Well, I guess I have a question for both of you. I'm not quite sure if I know this, but does the U.S. Open Cup winner net itself a spot in the CCL next year? I know Leagues Cup winner, this year's Leagues Cup, that random isolated cup, does net you a CCL spot for next year. And obviously winning the MLS Cup nets you a spot as well. So there's something to think about when we are thinking the weight behind these competitions.
Orlando wasn't in the CCL, were they? Oh, no, Orlando was in the CCL.
Orlando was in the CCL. So I'm guessing maybe U.S. Open Cup nets you a CCL spot. So, I mean, on the financial side, obviously the Union would want to be in the CCL, right?
Yeah,
more games to potentially host, more opportunities to sell merch, et cetera, et cetera. So when we're thinking of the financial side and sort of be the corporate apologists here, they need that type of revenue, right? Yeah. We're not talking about a gigantic team.
Did Orlando win the cup last year?
Yep.
They beat us to then. It was Stuart Finley's goal was that day.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so Orlando did qualify.
Okay. So again, going back to Jim, you can't pick your cups, right? Let's win something and let's get into the CCL. You have 3 chances at this point remaining because we threw one out the window. But Dave, your points are very valid. This could be the game where we see some of those lesser known, if not known at all names come out. But again, we have a deep enough roster that a Matt Real should be thriving in this competition, and Andres Perea should be dominating, if not being the leader of this competition for the Philadelphia Union. Never mind a Damian Lowe, though I wonder if his performance was so immense this past weekend that maybe Jim is double, thinking back and trying to realize, shit, what do I do with Elliott, right? Is Elliott going to be my U.S. Open Cup player? Or
have a Brandon Craig, Jose?
Maybe. And, you can't forget about those under 20s that are going to be leaving soon. So finding them game time within the actual Union uniform will be tough, especially as they depart for that tournament. So maybe, go ahead, Dave.
So get what you can out of them now before they do go off.
Yep. And that's exactly it. And this is where I see a Matt Real, a Damian Lowe, or Elliott. I think Glesnes remains the rock. I don't think that he moves. I'd be intrigued to see.
That's a lot of time, man.
I totally get that, but he has been steady. Though I would be okay with seeing another face in there. Maybe it's a Elliott Lowe center back pairing, and then Harriel on the right side though. And Bizo didn't play this past weekend,
it's
right?
It's gonna be Olivier. No, Olivier would play. That's the thing too. And that's where. As you said, the team is deep enough that you can still compete against Minnesota. And we don't know how Minnesota is going to treat this. I assume Minnesota is probably going to make this more of a priority
Well, they just lost this weekend, so let's not forget that.
Oh fuck. Okay. Well then maybe not. I don't know.
They
I
lost
mean,
3-2.
yeah. I don't know. I want to see Bueno at the 6. I assume we're going to go with the diamond. Just assume for the assumption's sake, if we are in the diamond, put Bueno in the 6. Especially with Leon having a hip thing to begin with. We know that Jim mentioned he's going to get injections throughout the year. I believe is what he said. So why push Leon in a position he's obviously not very comfortable in? Just put Bueno in there in the 6 and let him do what he did in El Salvador, which I thought, besides Andres, he was probably the man of the match in El Salvador. For me, I thought he played great. Same with Lowe. They played great.
Mhm.
So the left, again, see the left is where you would put Andres then compared to on the right. So then who would be on the right-hand side? Torres?
I would think so. And then you go, who's your attacking mid too?
Daniel? You put
Do you
Daniel
think
again?
do you think Daniel plays again, or do we give him a break?
The problem with Jim Curtin, as we've seen time and time again, is that he does not like rotating more than 4 or 5 people. That's where I struggle to believe that it's going to be this major overhaul. Because he also knows if he gets bumped out in the round of 32, it's going to just be more hell for him to deal with in the media.
Oh my God, yeah, I can't fathom what it looks like. And I'm when we think about the other side of the coin, what is Minnesota going to be showing up with, right? Are we going to see their starlet goalkeeper Claire?
Yeah.
Or are we going to see their second or third string keeper get some time? And
that's
going to be huge.
Just think of last year. Last year we were destined to be Supporter Shield and MLS Cup contenders, and the entire Twitterverse exploded because we didn't take the Open Cup seriously. So think of it this year. We're definitely not the same team we were last year. And now there's no way the fans would accept that. The fans will not accept anything less than a semifinal appearance or a final appearance. That's it.
Well,
And
for us to put out an equal product this last year, right? What Stuart Finley starting, though, I would admit, I would argue that he did great when he was called upon. But
sure.
A Paxton Aronson who was unproven at the time. I don't think the national team tournament had happened, whatever that was, under 18s, or where he exploded and went off. For us to have an equal product to what we put out that game, I think we would need to put in Brendan Craig. We would need to put in Quinn Sullivan. Again, I'm not knocking these players, but what I'm saying is, if we're going to go with the play the kids, which has been sort of the, a synonym to the Philadelphia Union,
yeah.
that's what it's got to look like, though. I can't imagine with the pressure that Jim's under, though it can't be as heavy as we think, considering he's got 7 months to go and no contract signed. He sort of can do whatever he wants. And one of the departures that makes it extra interesting is that of the Chicago coach. He's gone today. So
same with Red Bull.
But we know that Jim would not even consider going to the Red Bull when you think about the history that Jim has with Chicago.
In terms of the new job, right?
Correct. Having won cups, etc. Never mind teams in Europe who might be knocking or even considering him. So again, I don't know what type of product to put tomorrow. I think we can play mental gymnastics for another 45 minutes here together, and it would be fun. But in reality, I think we're looking at 4 or 5 players that will rotate. And for our sake, for our conversation's sake, I hope that it's a Perea, a Bueno, and a Lowe. And then enjoy some time Donovan. And if you want to be Dave and be super half full, Trent goes in as a goalkeeper and get his only minutes of the season.
That might be the statement of the year, Dave, for you to say that. I don't disagree with you either. I think I wouldn't mind seeing him. I just don't. I don't think Jim's under the ability to do that right now. But go ahead.
I think Jim will play back 5. I think again. Obviously, he's mentioned the rotation and the depth he's got in the squad this year, but I've never really heard that. And I feel like, again, this is the sort of game where he can make a point about it. And I think the Union would approach this like any top team does approach the early stages of a local cup competition. He will make changes. I could see 6 or 7. I think Torres will get minutes. There'll be an opportunity for players to fight for a start and minutes in Colorado. There should be a point, for reserve players and role players to, prove a point and say.
We forgot about Raffanello too, Dave.
Hell yeah. But I feel like even a player like Real, why not make a statement? Why not make a statement and say, look, I should be starting Colorado. No disrespect to Carvag, no, I don't think he's not contributed much or done much this year. He's not been the same player he was last year. I feel like his set pieces have fallen off a bit. He hasn't produced his set. I mean, another issue I feel like is the Union winning first contacts inside the penalty area from set pieces. They've struggled all year, especially in the LAFC game. I think Jose reading the group chat in time was seeing, me just sort of tallying up how many times they didn't win a set piece in either box, which obviously led to the first goal, which put the Union with a mountain to climb, with them not winning the first or second contact in the box.
All right.
But I think again, Matt Real could turn up and have a really good game, get an assist, have a good solid defensive performance. Why can't he start in Colorado? I mean, it's an opportunity for a lot of players. If Bueno was to start, who knows? He can make a claim to potentially start Andres Pereira, Joaquin Torres. There are players out there who, again, are scrapping for minutes. They should be trying to take a hold of it. And I think Jim will perhaps make a point, maybe out of stubbornness or out of perhaps spite to the people. Well, they're calling me to rotate.
More than anything, I think I could argue, and I'd love to hear your thoughts from both of you. The LA loss makes this lineup for the US Open Cup both probably one of the most important lineups that Jim puts out there this year.
Yeah.
And also the most difficult one to predict, right? We talked about LAFC away being sort of a deciding factor onto what happens tomorrow and then what happens on Saturday. Had the Union won and somehow scraped their way all the way to the final against LAFC to go and play, I guess, what is it, Leon, or I can't remember who it is from the Mexican side, but had they won and gone on to the final, tomorrow's game would be play the kids, so no one cares. Just we're the Champions League final. Who cares? US Open Cup is we're not concerned whatsoever. And that's where Dave's Trent and Raffanello, Brendan Craig, etc., all these other guys, we would be so comfortable with just predicting. But because that did not happen, tomorrow I think is thank you, Valerie. Tomorrow is, again, I think tomorrow is both some rotation, but also I don't think Jim is even thinking about the Colorado game. I think tomorrow is priority, and again, if we cough up another MLS game on Saturday because we advance to the round of 16 in the US Open Cup, I think as a fan base we have to be okay with that, unfortunately, as difficult as it is.
Personally, I think if he doesn't rotate much, if he goes full strength, I don't see Pereira starting. I don't see Torres starting. I don't see a lot of unhappy fans again, people moaning that players aren't going to minutes. But if people want Jim,
someone calling for Pereira right here, man.
I agree. I agree Pereira should play, but I mean, clearly he's not in Jim's ideal starting plans. I mean, if we want Jim to go full strength or to really attack the competition, I can't see Pereira or Torres really starting. I think you could probably see a typical Jim Curtin lineup of, I wouldn't shot with Bedoya would play. I feel like he'd trust Bedoya, to get in there and do his job and, on the road.
But then that's it. But then that goes back to Jose's point from like 6 weeks ago. How does a transition out of Bedoya look? What is it?
It doesn't look like anything.
It doesn't look like anything. That's the point. I know everyone's sitting there saying you want to go full strength. I think you're not going to see what you've got unless you rotate. And I think, again, this is the sort of game where I know fans are going to put expected pressure on it. But I mean, being realistic, if the Union get knocked out, I'll be really going to look back on this at the end of the season, especially if they make a playoff run, and who knows? I mean, they could end up running into LAFC in the next round anyway and get beat 3-0 again. That's the whole unpredictability of cup football. Anything can happen in the draw. Again, I feel like this is the sort of competition where Jim will look at it and go, if we can get through the first round with rotated players, getting players minutes, and then we can go take it full strength, because I feel like if they go full strength and then make changes in Colorado and get twatted 3-4 by 3 or 4 goals, people are just going to moan and go, why didn't we do the opposite like we did last year in the thing? I feel like Jim's in a lose-lose situation, really.
He's in a very tough spot. If they do not win, he's in a very
unless of course the Union somehow, Jim, stuns us all and makes no changes in both games and wins both games somehow.
Yeah. And let's not lose sight of factors outside of soccer that can really take a toll on these players, both the travel, but also where they're traveling to, right? Elevation. From Minnesota.
Yeah.
to Colorado, that's
mean,
a very difficult transition for anyone's body.
I mean, it's not stopped them in the season beforehand. I mean, they travelled to Atlas and then to Chicago and made next to no changes.
No. Yes, I get that, Dave. What
That's
I'm
what I
saying
mean.
is elevation. That is a
Elevation.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean,
big difference.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, I mean, we've seen it before, with the climate and with the conditions of the game. Like, Jim hasn't really looked.
Yep.
I mean, I just think he would rather go risk the players. For us, that's just my point. I think that Jim would rather risk the players tomorrow, and I feel like go full strength in Colorado and take the players out there that he knows he can trust to play the full 90 minutes.
Although Jim's been stubborn up to this point. I do
Really?
think, yes. I know, weird thing for me to say.
Really?
I think to Dave's point from a few minutes ago, if they do go more rotation, you're going to have a lot of hungry players. So inadvertently, he could have made the best decision because now these players are going to be playing for their lives, essentially. Because if they have a bad performance, then there's no reason to play anymore.
Exactly.
At least like Perea has made the most of his minutes. Lowe has made the most of his minutes.
All right, so let's agree on an AAT Sports approved lineup here, okay? Are we okay with a back four?
Valerie, see my cat. Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah. Let's with an AAT seal of approval here. Are we? I think we can all nod yes to Bedoya out, Perea in.
Yes.
I think we can nod to Kai Wagner out, Real in.
Yes.
Yep.
And Bizo in, Harriel out.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
I can see either or.
It's only because for Olivier, or are you talking about
yeah,
Kyle?
Either or.
Olivier,
the right back, sorry, either or.
Yes. And then this is where we get tricky, right? We're not gonna agree, but a Lowe for an Elliott. Let Elliott play in Colorado. Put Lowe in. He had a great performance against New York.
Sure. I'm okay
with
that.
That continue.
Yeah.
Keep Gas Daddy in to have some more consistency, maybe. But I think we agree. Bueno at the 6.
Yeah.
Yes, Bueno has to be the 6. The issue then would be
then how are you going to get Torres in the team as well as
you're going to put Perea on the left and put Torres on the right, or
Correct.
you switch the formation. You might see Quinn at the top by himself,
which is a disaster. But I would argue that you would want Ua to play if it's going to be
Ua didn't start.
Yeah, a weakish Minnesota team potentially. Let's get Ua some more confidence here, okay? Then you could argue Carranza as well. So
then why not put Ua at the top and then put Daniel and Quinn behind him, or Quinn with Ua and put Daniel behind him. There's so many different formations. The problem is, here's the thing. Yeah. So for people who follow us more heavily, we do the Bet the Boys in Blue every single week. It's just a betting thing we put together. We're actually 7-4 this year, guys. So Jose, you predicted Gazdag's goal. I predicted the 1-0 money line bet. Or not the 1-0, but the money line bet.
That's my PK merchant.
Yeah, so we actually have been doing well betting these. If you follow us, you've been finding winners 7 out of 11 times. The issue is that I don't know how we're doing this because we never know what the lineup's going to be every single week. Yeah. I do think that this match in particular against Minnesota United is the hardest match to predict because you don't know how serious Minnesota's going to take it, and you don't know how serious Union are going to take it, and you also don't know how healthy some of these players are going to be coming off Saturday's game.
Yeah,
and load management like Kai Wagner. Kai's not going to play on Tuesday because of his hamstring. They cannot risk him blowing his hamstring out.
No.
Jose, I'm going to read some comments before I shoot it to you, and then we can get to the sponsors. Valerie asked, do you already comment on Martinez's health? No, we did not.
I think from the sounds of what was said on Friday, he's probably another week away.
I think so too.
At least, or perhaps another game he might be on the bench in Colorado.
There's a reason why he didn't come up at all during our conversation. I think we're all okay with him. Just don't play tomorrow. Don't play Saturday. Just rest.
Yeah, and then Mike says, I think Torres doesn't start, which is, again, I don't disagree with that at all. Right. I would be a very heavy rotation formation switch for him to start.
But I was going to say, just to go to Jose's point, with the whole altitude situation in Colorado, I don't know how bad Minnesota is for that sort of thing, but I feel like, again, if you're going to go for a pretty strong lineup in Minnesota, and you're going to perhaps make more changes for Colorado, can you really trust players like Matt Real, Torres, Perret, to go to a place with high altitude, which is going to take a lot more out of you, who haven't got the minutes, haven't got the match fitness to go and play in that sort of environment. Can you trust those players to go and get you a result in that sort of environment, as opposed to, the players that Jim, okay, yes, we've been annoyed that, he hasn't rotated the team, but most of the players, that have travelled to Mexico and they've played in Mexico, they've played in,
the stamina.
They've played throughout the season. They've got the match minutes to perhaps be a bit more fitter in the game, as opposed to some players who perhaps you might feel more comfortable playing in the cup situation where, okay, if you do lose again, it's not detrimental, but again, it's minutes in the tank, and it's perhaps not as difficult an environment to play in.
That's a fair point, and that completely falls on curtain that we're even having this conversation in with the 16th match of the season. So like I view it like college basketball. So like for college basketball, you play a lot of non-conference games. A lot of times it's like Alabama versus Austin P or some small school. So you typically will have a blowout. And in those games, that's when you heavily rotate and you get your bench guys minutes, because when it comes to the playoffs, you need to have proven depth. Not just on paper depth like Andres Perea. You need to have proven depth that they can go out there and perform when it matters. They have the fitness. So the fact that you're even asking that, Dave, again makes me very frustrated over the last month and a half that it's even an issue. But that's besides the point. So tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. we have the Open Cup streamed on YouTube via Bleacher Report, which is, again, very strange. I'm about to read the sponsor reads, and then we'll do the final thoughts before we wrap up this show. So
Bet the boys?
We'll do that for – we'll do that at the end. Okay, we'll do that at the end. Check out Statement Games for a fun new way to fancy sports entertainment. You can win gift cards and prizes. Free to sign up at statementgames.com. Doan Distillery at the Trolley Barn Public Market in Quakertown. Go to doandistillery.com to check out their wide variety of drinks and spirits. We have Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in Allentown, PA. Discover a new favorite by trying their top pizzas and so much more. Check out their new website at vinnyspizzarestaurant.com. Stuff at the Grills at 6750 Iroquois Trail number 5 in Allentown, PA, or at stufftothegrills.com. They have homemade hot and cold sandwiches, salads, appetizers, baked goods available for any event at stufftothegrills.com again. And across the pitch gear or all the AAT Sports Network gear at aatsportsnetwork.com/shop. That is the sponsor read. So we will do this Bet the Boys in Blue, for Saturday's match against Colorado. I don't even know how I'm going to predict this because we don't know what's going on tomorrow night. So maybe we hold off on it. Maybe we should hold off on any bets.
Yeah.
Let's just put a pause on it, because now as I say it out loud, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, maybe it makes sense for that to just be a pickup, maybe just like a Twitter pickup per se, just your TikTok video that goes online. So sorry to jam that in there, but I know you pimped it out 7 out of 11 times. We won people money.
Yeah,
don't forget.
That's
you
true.
can trust us.
The first week you did phenomenal, by the way, Jose. So, final thoughts, Jose, on the Union team in general, or anything else you want to share?
Again, Jim does not have any room right now to pick and choose what tournament he wants to win. We tried it with the CCL. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and not even dramatic fashion, and probably the worst possible fashion for us to crash out. So it is what it is. We move on. U.S. Open Cup. I hope that goes well. There will be more MLS games. I think we're on match week 11 we just finished. So match week 12 out of 34. We still have some room to find our way into the playoffs, if not continue to climb. So that's that. Excited for tomorrow's match. I'll be probably doing the match post-match thread for the presser. I should be available to do that. But then on a personal note, again, just thinking again about my cousin Bry, he and his family going through a hard time. No one has passed away or anything, just going through a very difficult patch right now. And again, remember, there's always someone out there to listen to you, to talk with you. Just always one person to call away. We're here to talk to you about the Union and listen to you. So never forget that.
Dave, how about you? Any final thoughts, sir?
I think it's going to be a weird week. I feel like, again, it might be a week that we look back on, from the Red Bulls game up to Colorado, but we look at the season, who knows, maybe look, this could have kickstarted the season. I mean, fingers crossed they can win tomorrow and make it through into the round of 16. And, perhaps they're not going to the US Open Cup, and they haven't really made, because I think it got cancelled in 2021, didn't it? US Open Cup.
Yeah, because of the tournament.
Yeah,
the COVID rather.
yeah, because of COVID. So again, they've been knocked out last year, and they've only made a run in the competition for a few years now. So I mean,
Yep.
again, it would be nice, but I think again, I feel like Jim will probably prioritise the league. I know obviously the whole argument of there are more teams in the playoffs now, but I think, as was shown last year, home field advantage was so important, and
Right.
the season could have been so different had had the Union gotten home field advantage in the what's it called, in the Supporter Shield. Obviously, I feel like with the start of the Union have had, it's very unlikely that
Yeah.
they're actually going to be able to compete for the Supporter Shield. So I feel like the league will probably come first to try and come up as high as you can, and even getting a point in Colorado would probably be quite big. I think again in the MLS, if you can win at home, draw away, you've got a good shout of getting a good record.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I mean, Jose, as we mentioned earlier, we have been Union fans since almost the beginning. I know you've been since the beginning, and the Open Cup for us is almost, we kind of dread it in a way. It's a lot of bad memories. I was at both of those against Seattle and Kansas City. I watched the Houston Dynamo just embarrass us in Houston. So I would love to win the Open Cup just to say we did it finally and knock that monkey off our back. But listen, the Union have been playing outside of LAFC. I mean, they beat Toronto 4-2. They tied against Chicago. They have obviously beat the Red Bull. So in MLS recently, they've been playing better. So I hope that they can carry some of that momentum into this Minnesota United match, and then obviously into Colorado. So that is across the pitch. We'll be probably live tweeting it out tomorrow night, and then we'll see what happens. Hopefully the Union pull out a win with whoever they have on the team tomorrow.
Follow me for the post-match press conference tomorrow. I'll be there.
Yes.
I'll be there virtually. Follow the thread, and if you have any questions you want me to ask or consider asking, that we always get to ask a question, just shout it out. Send it on that thread, and we'll consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, buddy. Happy Monday night.